So in the 90s, I was really focused on building that business and making a success of it with my partners.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a listed company. We're managing a lot of people's savings.
Yeah.
So we had to take it very seriously. It was not, you know, it wasn't something to play around with.
No,
So
I remember the ads during Bunting and Golding. It's
I
black
remember them
and
too.
light. It's like, what is this company? It's like, you're poor. Relax.
Well, you know, some people started small and made a good money out of it, including our staff.
But my question for you here today is it true that opposition leader Mark Golding had an involvement in FINSAC, which according to a PNP stalwart, has the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich? And I myself, I'm from Cassava Peace. I was born and raised there, so I want to know.
Thank you.
A lot of persons don't understand what FINSAC was. FINSAC was the solution to the financial crisis.
The People's National Party who, yes, instituted FINSAC, but why? The why has to come before what exactly was done.
To ensure that the depositors did not lose anything. That's what the FINSAC was for. Mark Golding was not in government at the time. Mark Golding was not in government at the time.
On a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, on a Friday, on a Saturday, 2 times on a Sunday.
I was part of the team that worked with Michael Manley in the 1990s. As I said, I was part of the team led by Michael Manley.
Is it true that opposition leader Mark Golding had an involvement in FINSAC, which according to a PNP stalwart, has the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich? And I myself, I'm from Cassava Peace. I was born and raised there, so I want to know.
Mark Golding was not in government at the time. Mark Golding was not in government at the time.
In a time when an inept PNP government was struggling with managing a market economy which it knew little or nothing about.
I came into the party through Dr. Omar Davis because I knew him in the financial sector, where I had been like one of the leading corporate lawyers in Jamaica and very involved in financial engineering. And so when he was Minister of Finance, a lot of the things that required industry input, I was one of the representatives of the industry that he would deal with. I got to know him through that. And that's how I got into the PNP, really, through my relationship with him.
With blood rushing to its head when this action was revealed, an embarrassed PNP government set about withdrawing public funds from the Central National Bank, making it publicly known. And in the process, it started or triggered a run on the bank which was seemingly designed to end its life. That, however, is a sad history for the most progressive bank existing in Jamaica at that time.
Finally, for me, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister hammered home this matter of what FINSAC did in terms of the impact on the country's debt and your potential role in that debacle in the 1990s. Do you accept that narrative as put forward? And do you feel that FINSAC, as it played out in the 1990s, was damaging to the Jamaican economy?
I had no role in FINSAC whatsoever. I was in the private sector there. I was an attorney at law, and I was involved in business as well. I entered the party through Dr. Omar Davis because I knew him in the financial sector, where I had been like one of the leading corporate lawyers in Jamaica and very involved in financial engineering. And so when he was Minister of Finance, a lot of the things that required industry input, I was one of the representatives of the industry that he would deal with. I got to know him through that. And that's how I got into the PNP, really, through my relationship with him.
It led to the financial sector collapse, where over 40 financial institutions went. Entrepreneurs that previously had been heralded by him. Some of them are exiles abroad now. Many entrepreneurs lost their businesses. Many companies that were over 100 years old in Jamaica were destroyed and sold to foreigners. That is the legacy. And even one of his colleagues who sits in this room today described it as the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich since the abolition of slavery.
The commerce of is clear. We don't come to make no money out of politics. We don't make my money already.
Shock, which began in 1991 in Jamaica, ballooned unchecked over the next 5 years until it exploded with a catastrophic bang in 1996. The explosion left shrapnel scattered over the financial landscape, which still impacted on the economy so many years later. The government's response to the financial crisis of the 1990s, and she has, as we have said, written her book, Too Black to Succeed, the FINSAC Experience, on the phone lines. Lady President of the UNIA Kingston Chapter, educator, author, entrepreneur, and grandmother. My sister Valerie Dixon,
So what I want to bring out this morning is that a lot of people do not understand where this thing came from. And I want to just read a little from an appendix that was written in the Observer some time ago. It says, when Omar Davis, then PNP finance minister in the 1990s, began the process of dismantling the Central National Bank, it was done immediately after the Don Crawford-run entity had bought a significant sum of US dollars at a few dollars more than the price that the official exchange rate indicated. The bank did nothing which other banks were not doing in a time when an inept PNP government was struggling with managing a market economy which it knew little or nothing about. So, if you withdraw money from the most progressive bank at the time, what do you think is bound to happen? It is going to trigger what is known as a domino effect. There's going to be a run or a rush on the bank for people trying to get out their monies. And we do not understand, most of us, what the effect or the repercussions or the consequences of such a run on a bank would actually do. And again, we ask the question, the government contented itself to believe that companies which had been conducting business successfully for decades were suddenly struck en masse with ineptitude, stupidity, and amnesia as to how to properly run a business.
But that is a story that tugged on my heart as a daughter, as a sister, when I read it, about how you found out that you'd lost your house and what you saw in a vehicle in terms of your clothes, and what you felt and how dejected you felt, and that whole, just the way you told that story and how it's written in the book, I saw the tears literally dropped onto the page as I was reading, because I felt your pain through those pages.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and that is just part of the experience.
And that was just part of what happened to us, whose only crime was to create employment for Jamaicans. That is the amount, that is the extent of what we were doing for our country as black people, as black producers, as black entrepreneurs. And this is the experience that Mythic Megalia had to go through because of government and politics. And when I see who get that house, I'm telling you, I am telling you.
You said
one but Duns River bus again. So
but believe it there. That's the question that we need to ask. Who is a FINSAC report protecting? And it must be a whole host of people who are being protected by why this report is under lock and key. But it's one of the injustices that's a scar on the conscience of Jamaica, and one that we want to ensure that on our watch, we do that which we are supposed to do.
Yes, Taboo, and I want to end by saying that when you see the colored of the people who got bailed out. And when you see the color of the people who are under the same circumstances and were destroyed, it makes you draw the conclusion that most of us are too black to succeed. So the brown ones and white ones, too white and brown to fail, and we the black ones, too black to succeed. I'm not care who argue with me. That was my experience. I lived through it, and even now we're not quite out of the woods, but it could have worse, as them boy street would have said. Well, can you imagine a man who has never earned the reputation of being an entrepreneur, does not know what it is to find a pay bill when you have men waiting on that pay bill to go home to feed them family, and that man who has never made a pay bill in his life going to look at people who have 50 years experience as entrepreneur, black entrepreneur who built this country since independence, and you go and look on them and style them as bad debtors?
You know, Omar Davies really does have a lot to say to, he has not yet made, he needs to one apologize, but he also, and he was the finance minister at the time, and this is why I'm identifying him.
The party through Dr. Omar Davies, because I knew him in the financial sector, where I had been like one of the leading corporate lawyers in Jamaica and very involved in financial engineering. And so when he was Minister of Finance, a lot of the things that required industry input, I was one of the representatives of the industry that he would deal with. I got to know him through that. And that's how I got into the PNP, really, through my relationship with him.
But he really does have to stand up before he dies and talk to those survivors, talk to those victims. Some killed themselves, some committed suicide. This is how serious this was. Talk to the Jamaican entrepreneurs, the black people in Jamaica who suffered so as a result of those of FINSAC, and making peace with God and the ancestors. Val, we'll continue the conversation. Where can we get the book before you go?
The book can be had at Kingston Bookshop, any of their branches, C-Mart Bookstore in Ligani Plaza, and online, Kindle, and Amazon.com. Imagine. Now, that is the weight of the bad-mindedness.
They don't know your story.
I am trying to let the millennial generation know themselves and their identity. I don't care about money. As a matter of fact, if I could get this book sponsored, I would give it free to every Jamaican young person who is thinking of investing in Jamaica, to make certain that they never ever make what happened 20-odd years ago ever happen in this country again. But without knowledge, you have your eyes wide open in the dark because you don't know.
We can clear it up and the truth can be told.
Thank you very much.
What I find, just a second.
Hold on.
Just a second.
Last point.
Yes. What I find very interesting is that people are saying and questioning where Mark Golding got his wealth from, but they're not questioning those deposits made into the Prime Minister's account at the ATM. They're not questioning the $400 million that we don't know.
So in the 90s, I was really focused on building that business and making a success of it with my partners. And, you know, it was a listed company. We're managing a lot of people's savings. So we had to take it very seriously. It was not, you know, it wasn't something to play around with.
No,
so
I remember the ads during Bunting and Golding. It's
I
black
remember
and
them too.
light. It's like, what is this company? It's like, you're poor. Relax.
Well, you know, some people started small and made a good money out of it, including our staff. You know, I don't really embrace the concept of capitalism personally. We're still, you know, of the democratic left, and we are a party with a strong tradition, socialist tradition, and, you know, I'm proud of it.